Many of us question on what happens when we die or about to die. Over time, there have been documented cases of people who have died or nearing death, but then came back to life. This is known as near-death experience or NDE. Arguably, both the scientific and religious communities have come up with their own explanations of these personal experiences. But you may ask, which side should you be on? With that in mind, welcome to Ancient of Days channel with our first episode of What Happens When You Die. To get more insight videos like this, be sure to subscribe, click the bell notification icon and give this video a like. Share to benefit those around you. Today, in this first episode, we are going to look at 3 persons who have had such near-death experience. These are their stories. Stay tuned until the end of this video for the main takeaway message of this insight. Clayton Burpo was 4 when he was on his way to a vacation with his family when he wouldn't stop vomiting. He was rushed to the hospital where doctors found his appendix had bursted with toxins having spread throughout his entire body. A few months down the road, when he became well enough, one day as he and his family were on their way to visiting some relatives, he began to speak of heaven and Jesus in intricate details to his family members. They found it hard to believe that he saw heaven, but gradually realized that it was the truth. As Clayton began to disclose further details, like having met his sister he never knew he had, who was a child his mom had miscarried, including his grandfather who died before he was even born. His father, Todd, a pastor, was astonished to find that Clayton's descriptions were close to how they are written in the Bible, a book that Clayton himself has never read. Clayton was also able to pinpoint the accuracy of a drawing of Jesus by a little girl who has been having visions of heaven since the age of 4.
Dr. Eban Alexander was a neurosurgeon who in 2008 went into a coma after contracting bacterial meningitis. His entire cortex, the part of brain which is in charge of thoughts and emotions, went entirely dead as a result. Doctors gave him very little chance of survival beyond vegetative state. He stayed in coma for 7 days. During the coma, he had a near-death experience, also known as NDE, where he went to heaven and saw heaven clearly. For the entire time, his body was closely monitored by CT scans and neurological exams, showing 0% of cortex functions. Doctors were going to pull the plug. And that's when he awoke from the coma. After regaining strength, he began to share his visions of heaven with his family members and others. He was in a place of clouds against blue-black sky, and above him were angels with huge booming joyful noises. Almost the entire time, he was with a woman whom he later found out was his biological sister who had passed away, one whom he never gotten to meet in real life. His sister spoke to him through thought transfer, and as Dr. Eban quoted,
"You are loved and cherished, dearly, forever. You have nothing to fear. There is nothing you can do wrong. We will show you many things here, but eventually, you will go back."
Jim Woodford is a retired pilot, having flown over 20,000 hours, who one day went brain dead for 11 hours. Previously a non-believer, with his wife being a believer all along, he woke up one day with his arms and legs being numb. It was then that he got diagnosed with Guillain-Barré syndrome, a disease that would increasingly interrupt one's brain signals, accompanied by extremely painful sensations. Over time, he began to increase dosage of his medication to numb his ever-increasing pain. One day while driving his truck, he stopped halfway through and out of desperation, began to take up much more medication than he ought to. All sudden, and very quickly, he felt burning sensations spreading throughout his entire body, and that's when he realized that he had done something truly catastrophic. He cried out to God, and in those very last moments, having managed to only cry out 3 words, "God forgive me." Shortly after though, he found that he was able to step out from his truck, oddly enough, without any pain. As he looked behind, he saw another guy leaning on his truck's steering wheel. Taking a closer look, he then observed that the guy was himself, in the flesh. About the same time, he could then felt his body slowly lifting itself through the air, then flying at extremely high speed towards a very bright light. He then went through what seems to be into another dimension and landed himself on a place with green grass, with much more spectrums of colors than Earth, with a clear divisible line showing another place with extremely dark colors. This other place, filled with stench, features a very dark, deep pit. From that pit, he then witnessed an extremely big dark creature climbing up towards where he was standing, where it eventually gotten its claws on Jim's back. In extreme fearfulness and desperation, he then shouted, "God help me, God help me." In that very moment, he could almost immediately saw 3 forms of light coming at extremely fast speed towards him. These light landed without any damaging impact to the ground, despite their unimaginable traveling speed. The light then swiftly took form as angels. The angels' light radiated on the creature, and the creature went crawling back in fear towards the pit, described by Jim as if running, like a rat. The angels spoke to him through thought transfer. He described heaven as an entirely different world. Unlike anything we've been taught about physics, laws of gravity, time, linear space, and coordinate references, where they simply do not exist. He then witnessed the holy city, comprising of magnificent buildings of light, emitting vibes of warmth and love, separated by halls. There were halls of knowledge, music, learning, and just about anything to letting one learn about the mysteries of God. He even witnessed the hall of nursery, where even young souls that were aborted on earth were to be found there, just so they can be raised up in heaven. Jim was later brought to Jesus by an angel who then pulled Jim's book of life for Jesus to have a look. To Jim's surprise and embarrassment, his book of life was just as thin as a restaurant food menu, considering the countless many things he had done in his life. An epiphany fell upon him that very moment, as he had only lived his life only for himself and never for others. As he so happened to having locked eyes with Jesus, he could clearly see Jesus's eyes were filled with sadness for how his life has turned out, yet with love and forgiveness for him. At the same time these events took place, his family members were praying for him with all their might. Their prayers were answered. When he came back to life, he immediately felt his disease having left him completely. With this, we have reached the end of today's testimonies. Food for thought. Did you find anything that surprised you? Let us know in the comments. On the main takeaway that we mentioned during an early part of this video. As of today, our stories individuals, having caught a glimpse of where they would be spending their eternity in, they have since come to dedicate their entire lives to God, testifying on heaven, the one above, and Jesus, so that others like yourself will not be caught off guard when it's time for you to step into the afterlife forever. To get more insight videos like this from Ancient of Days channel, be sure to subscribe, click the bell notification icon and give this video a like. Share to benefit those around you. May the blessings of the Lord go with you.